Chapter 1. The Music Theory. Why do we need to study music theory? Music theory is an attempt to explain music and give a visual and verbal representation. It can be very difficult to document and recreate music and communicate with other musicians without it. It is also a way to better understand the patterns and structures found in different genres, which can greatly help in the creation of new compositions. If you know music theory and its components, especially the scales and modes, you don't have to learn and rediscover notes and musical patterns through trial and error. With enough practice, you'll be able to learn and play any piece and song much faster. You'll also be able to recognize patterns on your sheet music instead of playing it note per note, symbol by symbol. So set aside those tabs and be ready to be called a full-fledged musician and bassist. Basic elements of music. Let's start with the components of music or music theory. As a musician, you really need to know these before we go to the next lesson. Understanding these will also help you communicate better with other musicians. Rhythm. This is the patterned movement of a beat. It also sets the pace to where chords, notes, and other sounds begin and end. It's all about the music's duration. Elements of rhythm. Beat. Tapping and clapping along with the song is considered a beat. A beat is a rhythmic pattern or pulse used in music. Oftentimes it is recognizable and repetitive and is reinforced by percussion instruments. Meter. This refers to the beat count of the music. Time signatures will help you identify how many beats per measure and will also help you divide the beat counts. Example, 4/4 means 4 counts in a measure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Tempo. This is measured as beats per minute, or BPM. The tempo refers to the speed of the beat. In general, it can be fast or slow, allegro or largo. Harmony. This is a group of notes played together to support the melody. Harmony also gives texture and mood to the music that you're playing. It is the arrangement of notes and instruments played together to form chords and layers of pleasing sounds. Melody. This is also a group of notes that gives voice and tune. Melody, or a melodic line, is a stream of notes, often played individually or in such a way that it forms a distinctive pattern and sound. This is also part of the music that you can remember and hum to. What a bassist should focus on. Groove. Bassists are often ignored and underestimated, but they really have a big role to play, especially in a band. They also have a lot of freedom. They can be subdued at times and jump out and break out at another. A bassist has a lot of responsibility that uneducated listeners don't notice too often. Maintaining the beat of a song and reinforcing the correct timing or tempo is one of the important roles as a bassist. One can even say that the bass is the bridge linking percussion instruments, such as the drums, to lead or melody-carrying instruments, such as the guitar. That is why practicing using a drum machine or metronome is very important, essential even. This will help you practice how to keep steady beats and tempos. Knowing how the song goes and always keeping the groove. If you know arpeggios, scales, and modes, then it will be easier for you to create groovy and catchy bass lines, which is a great addition to any song that you're playing. This will also require you to practice a lot using a drum machine or metronome. Providing the rhythmic and harmonic foundation of the song is the quintessential role of the bassist, especially in a band. We need to provide a stable platform where melodic lines can freely move and mix. Stepping out, soloing, playing melody, emphasizing on attack. While bassists typically provide rhythmic and harmonic foundations of the song, they can also step out and play solos just like most guitarists do. A good example of a player who does this is Victor Wooten. He can even play the bass as a solo instrument without a band because he can make the bass sing and produce a variety of tonal qualities using different techniques such as harmonics, tapping, popping, and slapping. You can also learn to do this if you practice and focus on mastering the techniques. Intervals. An interval is the distance between two notes. In Western music, the smallest distance is between two notes as seen on the piano, although this can be smaller in Eastern or Indian music. Whole step and half step. These are terms used to describe the distance of the notes in an octave or scale. Whole step, W. One note apart or one space apart. Another name for a whole step is tone or T. Half step, H. No space between two notes. It is usually sharps and flats. Another name for half step is semitone or S. Major interval, WWH, WWWH, or TTS, TTTS. Minor interval, WH, WWH, WW, or TS, TTS, TT. Musical intervals. These are the important terms that you need to remember. These terms will help you easily locate the notes that you will play. Root, R. The root note is the foundation of the scale, its octave, and its resulting chord. It always starts with a root note and also ends with a root note. Minor second, M2, or flat second, B2. Half step or semitone away from R, root. Major second, M2 or 2. Whole step interval from the root. Minor third, M3, or flat third, B3. 2 half steps away from the root. A half step away from M2. Major third, M3, or 3. 3 half step away from the root. Half step away from M3. You can play this note on the same string. You can also play it on the next string or the adjacent string. Perfect 4, P4 or 4. 4 half step away from the root. Half step from M3. Augmented fourth, A4 or number 4, or diminished fifth, D5 or B5. 5 half steps away from the root. A half step from P4. A4 simply means number 4, sharp 4, because it is next to P4, while D5 means B5, flat fifth, because the next note will be P5. Perfect 5, P5 or 5. 6 half steps away from the root. A half step from A4 or D5. Augmented fifth, A5 or number 5, or diminished sixth, D6 or B6. 7 half steps away from the root. A half step from P5. Augmented fifth, major sixth, M6. 8 half steps away from the root. A half step away from M6. Minor seventh, M7. 9 half steps away from the root. Half step away from M6. Major seventh, M7. 10 half steps away from the root. A half step away from M7. Perfect octave, P8 or 8, or root, R. Root to root, the last note, octave. Quick tips. Musical intervals are often written as numbers: 1, 2B, 2, 3B, 3, 4, number 4, B5, 5, number 5, B6, 7B, 7, 8, P8, 1, so do not be confused. Use these symbols and terms, as these are a lot easier to remember. Scales. Scales are one of the main ingredients in making music. You can easily determine the notes of all melodic lines without much guesswork using scales. This is one of the essential topics that you will need to learn to better understand how melodies are constructed. Scales are groups of notes and intervals from the musical alphabet that have 12 notes or letters: C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, and B. The notes of a scale found all over the fretboard can be divided into 7 modes, Greek scales, Each mode has a different tune and personality. As previously mentioned, scales define the relationship of one note to another. If you become familiar with using scales, you will automatically know how modes will be arranged on the whole fretboard. If you know where the modes are located on the fretboard, this will help you determine what notes on the fretboard you can use when playing through a song in a particular key. Types of scales. Major. This is the most familiar scale. You may often hear people hum or sing do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. That's the major scale. The major scale consists of 7 notes, and the scale degrees are R, root, M2, major second, M3, major third, P4, perfect fourth, P5, perfect fifth, M6, major sixth, M7, major seventh, R. Don't count the octave. Minor. Another common type of scale. The minor scale conveys sad or moody feelings. It is typically used for modern blues songs. A minor scale consists of root, M2, major second, M3, minor third, P4, perfect fourth, P5, perfect fifth, M6, minor sixth, M7, minor seven, R. Later we will show the relationship between the major and minor scales, as these two are just parts of the same thing, occupying opposite ends of our collection modes. Occupying opposite ends of our collection of modes. Pentatonic consists of 5 notes in an octave. These scales are widely used in jazz, blues, and country music. Major pentatonic. The intervals for a major pentatonic scale are R, root, M2, major second, M3, major third, P5, perfect fifth, M6, major sixth, R. Don't count the octave. This scale can be applied to any kind of genre because it is easy to play and pleasing to the ears. Minor pentatonic. The minor pentatonic scale consists R, root, M3, minor third, P4, perfect fourth, P5, perfect fifth, M7, minor seven, R. It is commonly used in jazz, funk, rock, and blues. Harmonic minor. This scale consists of root, M2, major second, M3, minor third, P4, perfect fourth, P5, perfect fifth, M6, minor sixth, M7, major seven, R. The harmonic minor is similar to the minor scale, but instead of playing M7, minor seventh, you will play the next note M7, major seventh. This is typically used in neoclassical rock compositions. Melodic minor. This consists of R, root, M2, major second, M3, minor third, P4, perfect fourth, P5, perfect fifth, M6, major sixth, M7, major seventh, R. This scale is like a major scale with a minor third on the pattern. Whole tone consists of 6 notes, and the intervals from each note are all whole steps. Whole tone scale contains R, root, M2, major second, M3, major third, A4, augmented fourth, A5, augmented fifth, M7, minor seventh, R. Blues. This scale consists of R, root, M3, minor third, P4, perfect fourth, D5, diminished fifth, P5, perfect fifth, M7, minor seventh, and R. The blues scale is commonly used in blues, jazz, funk, and rock. Scales and modes. Scales are arrangements of notes that can be played ascending or descending. If you lay out the notes of a scale all over the fretboard, it can be divided into 7 modes with different intervals, patterns, and tones. Modes were developed by the Greeks a long time ago. This is why the modes are named after them. The notes on the fretboard are all related to each other. You can use all the patterns mentioned anywhere on the fretboard, but each mode will give you the same familiar musical pattern, only with different feeling and personality. Before I start to discuss the lesson about modes, you need to be familiar with the arrangement of the notes on the fretboard first. On a sheet of paper, try to draw the fretboard with 24 frets, and then write down all the notes. Notice the repeating patterns. You will see that since the bass uses standard tuning, a particular note will be found on the next string 6 frets back. Begin counting from the fret of the note you chose. Patterns will especially be noticeable once you plot out the modes on the whole fretboard. There are 7 modes in a scale, and they are found in this specific order. Ionian mode: C, Do, W, W, H, W, 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 H. First mode that starts on C. This will be your first mode if you will play a major scale. Some refer to Ionin as the major scale because the pattern used for this mode is just the same. Dorian mode: D, Re, W, H, W, 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 H, W. This is the second mode that starts on D. The tone of this scale is a bit unhappy and unsettled. Phrygian mode: E, Mi, H, W, 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 H, W, W. Third mode that starts on E. Most modern composers and musicians commonly use Phrygian mode because it goes well with Ionin mode, and you can also make solo lines using this mode. Lydian mode: F, Fa, W, 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 H, W, W, H. Fourth mode that starts on F. Lydian is one of the most commonly used by jazz musicians. Mixolydian mode: G, Sol, W, W, H, W, W, H, W. Fifth mode that starts on G. Another mode used to combine with the Ionin key of a song. Aeolian mode: A, La, W, H, W, W, H, W, W. Sixth mode that starts on A. This will be the first mode if you are playing a minor scale. The pattern for this mode is similar to the minor scale. Locrian mode: B, T, H, W, W, H, W, W, W. Seventh mode that starts on B. This mode is said to be unstable. Most musicians find this mode uninteresting because of its unsteady pattern. Quick reminders. It will be easier for you to memorize modes if you already know the intervals and the visual form of each mode. Make sure to apply them by playing modes on your bass. Once you know how to do it, it will be easier for you to memorize the modes and recognize the arrangement of notes by ear. Mode patterns and shape. Here are the mode shapes for the G major scale. This example will be enough to give you an idea how scales fit into modes and how modes are intertwined with each other. I will also explain how to locate and construct modes. How to locate the modes. 1. Start or find the root note of the scale. In our example, we used the G major scale. This is why we started from G, 3rd fret, E string. 2. From the root note on the E string, apply major intervals W, W, H, W, 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 H. In our example, the root note G will be C, the starting note of the Ionin mode. A will be D, the starting note of the Dorian mode. B will be E, the starting note of the Phrygian mode. And C will be F, the starting note of the Lydian mode. D will be G, the starting note of the Mixolydian mode. E will be A, the starting note of the Lydian mode, and so on. Now that you know the location of the starting notes of each mode, proceed to apply the patterns given above, modes. Quick tips. In a major scale, the mode always starts with the Ionin mode, Do to Do or C to C, while in a minor scale, the mode will start with Aeolian mode, La to La or A to A. To memorize the modes, simply practice playing these modes on your bass, once each in a particular root note, and then another in their specific order. Once you know how to do it, there is no way for you to forget it. Before you play a song or a piece, you can play scales as your warm-up, because doing this will also help you memorize the location and the sounds of the notes on the fretboard. Play them once or twice, up and down, then try mixing the notes up. Chord progression. A chord progression is the succession of chords played in a song or piece. The chords and notes played belongs to a specific key, scale, or root. So if someone tells you to play a song in the key of G, major, you already know what chords and notes to play. G, A sharp minor, B minor, C, D, E minor, F diminished. This is not a rule. However, although you can use any note you like, playing the notes which belong to its key sound the most musical. Quick reminders. Since we cannot play chords on the bass guitar, we will just play the root note of the chord or any note in a chord. Arpeggios. Since we typically do not play chords on a bass, a good way of maintaining chord structure in a passage of a piece would be to play an arpeggio. Arpeggios are notes in a chord that are played one by one or individually. Instead of playing notes all together, chords, we're going to play the notes in the chord one by one. Other terms for arpeggios are broken chords and arpeggiated chords. If you know the notes in a chord, then you already know the notes in its arpeggio. You can also create catchy bass lines and solos with arpeggios. Arpeggios can be played on virtually any musical instrument, and the bass is no exception. Arpeggios, especially those played in a fast and flowing manner, sound very organic and musical. It is also a good way to ease melodic lines into each other. Here are some functions of arpeggios. They enforce the chord patterns in a song. This is a good soloing strategy when played using sweep picking to produce a cascading effect. They provide solid and very musical groove patterns. Arpeggio patterns. Here are some of the most basic and widely used arpeggio patterns. These terms and symbols are also often used on tabs. You'll most probably encounter these terms if you are playing with a band. The triad. A triad is a chord which consists of 3 tones. If you want to play a major or minor arpeggio, simply use the 3 tones which make up the major or minor chord of your choice. While the notes in an arpeggio are usually played with sweep picking, one after the other, across 1 or 2 octaves such as R, M3, P5, R, M3, P5, R. The style of playing arpeggios isn't limited to this. You can create and apply your chosen pattern, as long as you use only the notes within the chord. Major triad. To begin, we will just pick 3 major tones from the major scale. A major triad has R, root, M3, major third, P5, perfect fifth, R. The chord symbol for a major triad is simply the note or the root of the chord. Example, if your bandmates tell you the chords are C, G, C, It simply means that you will play the C major triad, the G major triad, and the C major triad. Minor triad. A minor triad uses a minor third instead of a major third. A minor triad has a R root, M3 minor third, P5 perfect fifth, R. The notation or chord symbol for a minor triad is simply the note or the root note of the chord, followed by a small letter M for minor. Example, E minor triad, EM, F sharp minor triad, F sharp M. Diminished triad. Another common triad or chord that you will encounter is the diminished triad. Diminished simply means to make lower. To make it easy for you to recognize this pattern, simply remember that this triad, the diminished triad, has a diminished fifth of flat minor fifth. Dominant triad consists of R, root, M3, minor third, D5, diminished fifth, R. The notation or the chord symbol for a diminished triad is dim. Example, F sharp, diminished triad, F sharp dim. Augmented triad. Augmented means to raise a tone. It's the exact opposite of diminished. In this triad, instead of playing the note on diminished fifth or perfect fifth, we're going to raise the tone 1/2 step or semitone from the perfect fifth, sharpening the fifth. This triad contains R root, M3 major third, A5 augmented fifth, R. The chord symbol for augmented is aug. Example, C augmented, C aug. The seventh chord. There are several types of seventh chords. When you encounter chords or chord symbols with number 7 at the end, like EM7 and E7, that chord belongs to the seventh chord. It consists of 4 notes. We will just simply add M7, major seventh, to major, and add M7, minor seventh, to minor triad pattern. These chords are often used in jazz, funk, and pop. Major seventh. A major seventh chord is made up of the R root, M3 major third, P5 perfect fifth, M7 major seventh, R. The chord symbol for the major seventh is M7 maj 7 or delta 7. Capital M for major and the number 7 for seventh chord. Example, root C in major seventh, C major seventh, C maj 7, C M7, C delta 7. Dominant seventh. This is another type of seventh chord that you will encounter. The dominant seventh is the one note different from the major seventh. The dominant seventh is a semitone or half step lower than a major seventh chord. It consists of R, root, M3, major third, P5, perfect fifth, M7, minor seventh, R. Dominant chords may not sound as pleasant compared to major seventh or minor seventh chords, but they are great for adding flavor to a progression which uses a lot of seventh chords. The chord symbol for the dominant seventh, the chord's root and number 7. Example, G dominant 7, G7. DB, D flat, dominant 7, DB7. Minor seventh. A minor seventh chord is made up of the R root, M3 minor third, P5 perfect fifth, M7 minor seventh, R. The pattern is just like the minor triad. We just added a minor seventh after the P5. The minor seventh is often used in funk, jazz, and rock. The chord symbol for a minor seventh consists of the chord's root, small letter M for minor, and number 7. Example, C minor seventh, C M7, C min 7, or C hyphen 7. Suspended. Suspended or sus simply means that you will remove the third, minor or major, and replace it with other notes, usually major second or perfect fourth. which depend on what number is written after sus. The suspended chord contains R, root, P4, perfect fourth, or M2, major second, P5, perfect fifth, R. The chord symbol consists of a note or the root note of the chord followed by sus for suspension and suffixed with the numbers 2 or 4. Example, G suspended fourth, G sus 4. Quick reminders. Since this standard electric bass has only 4 strings, most of the time chords, especially 7th and above, are played using tapping. The tapped notes are usually held to sustained. This is the only way to play notes which are higher up on the fretboard. As I mentioned above, it is important to study and memorize the notes on chords because a bassist should not be restricted to playing root notes on chord changes.